Okay, so welcome back, everyone. So as you know, I'm Hélène Descalviers. I'm a pediatric immunologist and clinician-scientist at the CHU Sainte-Justine, and I'm happy to co-host this session with my colleague Geneviève Maillot. So today we have the privilege to have Monique Nuyt talk to us on child health research, challenges, solutions, and successes. So Monique Nuyt is a neonatologist and senior clinician scientist at the CHU Sainte-Justine in Montreal. Dr. Nuyt's research team studies the risk of cardiovascular disease in children and adults who were born preterm. Her translational research program spans from experimental animal work to clinical as well as epidemiological studies. She leads the HAPI, Health of Adults Born Preterm Investigation cohort study with Dr. Thuy Mai Luu, and launched the Quebec Research Network in Prenatal Determinants of Child Health with Dr. Sylvana Côté. She holds the Cercle de Sainte-Justine DOHaD Research Chair. She's also currently Professor of Pediatrics and Chair of the Department of Pediatrics at the CHU Sainte-Justine Faculty of Medicine of the University of Montreal. She's Chair of the Advisory Board of the CIHR Institute for Health Development, Child and Youth Health. Her research is also funded by CIHR and Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. Dr. Nuyt was awarded a number of prizes for her work, is actively involved in scientific societies in prenatal as well as adult cardiovascular research, and in mentoring both clinicians and scientists. So we're really happy to have Monique with us today, and Monique, I give you the mic.
Well, thank you very much, Hélène. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to, well, not see you, but know you're there for this very nice annual meeting of CCHCSP. So Linda and Susan Samuel asked me to tell you a little bit about my experience in child health research so far, and maybe share with you some maybe not advices, but tricks or food for thought as you're more junior or launching your career. First, I would like to do my land acknowledgement. You can see on the picture Mont-Royal and in Montreal and the University of Montreal. So I would like to acknowledge that the University of Montreal is situated on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Mohawks of the Haudenosaunee First Nations Federation, on which we are learning, working, and organizing today. On this land, long before the arrival of the French, people of many indigenous nations came together and interacted. We wish to acknowledge these nations, their descendants, and the spirit of fraternity that presided over the signing of the 1701 of the Great Peace of Montreal, a treaty that fostered peaceful relationships between France and its indigenous allies and the Haudenosaunee Federation. Myself, as a daughter of immigrants, I consider important to acknowledge the land and those who lived here long before my family has adopted this country as their home. And therefore, as all Canadians, I want to consider as my duty to actively participate and support the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada calls to action in order to redress the legacy of past politics, laws, and of the residential schools, especially regarding the health and well-being of Indigenous children and of their parents. So I will start by sharing with you a little bit my history, and then I will go through some thoughts and some reflection that I have over what I've been through and what I've witnessed in my around me regarding launching a career in as a clinician scientist. So I did my MD and my pediatric residency at the University of Sherbrooke in Quebec, where I grew up. And rapidly in my pediatric residency, I really liked the NICU and I wanted to become a neonatologist. I shared that thought with two neonatologists, very respected, who both told me that this was going to be quite difficult for a woman, and especially if I wanted to have children. So I answered to them that this was my problem and that I will deal with later on, but I still wanted to become a neonatologist. So they said, okay, and they helped me. I also told senior persons in the center where I was training that I wanted to remain in an academic center because I thought it was very nice to be able to train the next generation of pediatricians. To that, I was told that I really, therefore, needed to do research. And a very senior scientist at that center said, well, what do you do in your summers since you're in medical school? Well, I said the first year I was a waitress at a nice restaurant, and then the second year with the money I earned, I went backpacking around Europe. He said, no research? I said, no research. He said, then you're not going to go anywhere with research if you haven't started very early. Anyway, we'll come back to that. So I went on to do my neonatal perinatal medicine fellowship at McGill. And then because I had to get some research training in order to be able to do research as a future neonatologist in an academic center, I decided to get a real training and not only 6 months in a university next door. So I obtained funds by the MRC, which is the ancestor of CIHR, the Medical Research Council of Canada, that allowed me to go to Iowa City. Initially, I thought I'm going to go there for 2 years and then that will be enough. Well, I ended up staying 3 years in Iowa City because I enjoyed very much the projects we were doing. And then I decided that this was not enough for my training, and I obtained extra funding and did 2 extra years in Paris. So after 5 years of training, I got a job. So I became clinician-scientist at the CHU Sainte-Justine and a neonatologist. Then I had a 3-month-old baby when I started, and I had to start my lab with a theme of intrauterine growth restriction and hypertension. And I had to start as a staff in the NICU. I did not even know where the delivery room was back then in Sainte-Justine because I had not trained there. So this was quite challenging. I show you the growth curve of my heavy newborn. When he entered daycare, it kind of flattened. Obviously, we don't know what happens then after, but the pediatrician started to be a little worried with my ideas of working and having a baby, such a small baby in daycare. So this was not, this is part of the struggling part of being a junior faculty. Then I had to apply to salary awards with the Quebec funding body, the FRQS for Junior 1, which I obtained. And I obtained a first small fund, which was the Bounting Foundation. And then I got a Sick Kid Foundation. And finally, my first CIHR grant. So when I got my first CIHR grant, I said, okay, now is the time for the second baby, who's here. Whoops. When I came back from maternity leave after not 3 months that time, but 5 months, it was already time to apply for Junior 2 position, which I obtained by some kind of miracles. And it was also already time for a grant renewal. At that time, I had improved a little bit my niche, and now I knew I was going to study not just IUGR, but focus on preterm birth, and I was going to study cardiovascular diseases after preterm birth. But funding was a little hard to obtain. I had 1 year bridge funding from CHR. I had a heart and stroke foundation, but in Quebec back then was about 15,000 per year. And with this small, but nevertheless secure coming source of money, I had my third baby, was here. When I came back from maternity leave after 7 months that time, I realized that it was time to apply for my senior for the FRQS. I still had 2 weeks to write that, application, which obviously I did not get. And it took me three attempts to obtain my senior. So that's why I say it was struggling. So it's kind of going from one survival year to another survival year. The poor baby on that growth curve here has grown up to be quite well. And so here he seems quite tall because he's on his skates, but all the family survived those first years. So after the third baby and the difficult times of finding secure funding for the lab, I decided that it was really time to team up and to dare reaching out to others, because for sure it was more fun not to be writing grants on my own, but to be sharing the work and ideas. So I reached out to key persons in my career, persons with whom I developed friendship and who were very important. So Bill Fraser was obstetrician in Sherbrooke, was launching large cohorts with CIHR, and I went up to him and I said, you know, I really like the thematic of your research. I think I can contribute somehow, and I would like to be part of the team. And he welcomed me to the team, and that way I learned how to manage huge grants, huge applications, huge teams, how to build and carry successfully a training grant, and with Dr. Luu, fantastic perinatal epidemiologist, how to do good clinical studies and statistics. I reached out also to Professor Tessier at Université Laval, who was interested in following preterm children through a common person I knew here in Sainte-Justine, and he needed help to write a paragraph in a grant. And I said, yes, I will help you for sure. And that resulted into him sending to me Ariane Boivin, a fantastic student, to do her postdoctoral studies, and with whom we wrote another grant and papers that I'm still very proud of. I reached out to Rian Taus. Rian Taus is the future director of research for the McGill University Health Center. She will be starting next summer, coming back from Glasgow, where she spent many years. At that time, Rian Taus was at the Institut de Recherche Clinique in Montreal. And how I dared to reach out to her is that I passed a friend in the hallway here in Sainte-Justine, and he's carrying a box with samples in it. And I said, where are you heading? He said, I'm going to see Rian Taus because with these samples, she will be able to study renin-angiotensin system receptors on them. Oh, I said, Rian Taus, well, that's amazing. That's the person I really want to meet, but I don't have any opportunity because I was kind of shy. So I said, you know what? I'm going to bring the box for you. So I get in my car with the box. We were not supposed to do that, but that's what I did with the samples. And I went to see Rian Taus and I said, here are the samples of my friend, but here are my data. I don't know what to do with them. Could you help me? And she rose an eyebrow, obviously. Who is this? You know, popping up in my office with questions about data. But she was so kind that she said, okay, sit down and we will discuss. And she's been of amazing help guiding me over the first difficult years. And finally, I want to acknowledge that I was given the opportunity to team up with Dr. Thuy Mai Luu here in Sainte-Justine, who was junior faculty, but extremely well-trained also in epidemiology, when I decided that it was time to move my research from the experimental research to include as well clinical research, but I had no training in clinical research, and Thuy Mai Luu was really the person who made that project HAPI, the HAPI cohort, so our study of young adults born preterm possible, as we really wrote those grants and those studies together. So to reach out to people, to make contacts, to offer to help on larger project gave me amazing opportunities to get involved into grant review panels, because then you get invited to sit on those review panels where you meet more people, you make more friends, and you learn great science, and you learn how to write a grant. I also got involved in scientific societies and also in conference organization, where also continuously you get to learn. So success, the title of the talk is Challenges and Success, Solutions and Success. And success really for me is a team success, because I don't think I can do anything on my own. And I think that working with a team is really the way to go, and it's much more fun. So, with this team that we built in the lab with Dr. Luu, We have the HAPI cohort going, and we also still have experimental lab-based projects. My institution gave me support by giving me the Cercle de Sainte-Justine DOHaD research chair. And then I was given more opportunities to get involved and to give back by being offered and accepting leadership positions within the research center. As head of the division of neonatology, I also got involved at the Institute for Human Development, Child and Youth Health Advisory Board with Dr. Lee, and then now with Dr. Chambers, with the amazing colleagues who were launching DOHaD Canada, Development Origins of Health and Disease. I was able to participate to this adventure. And more recently, I got involved in the International Hypertension Society, specifically in the Women in Hypertension Research Committee. I launched the Quebec Perinatal Research Network that has seed money funding from FRQS and the Ministry of Health, Fondation des Étoiles, and the 4 universities of Quebec. And recently, I became chair of the Department of Pediatrics here. So what motivates me throughout this adventure is really to learn, and I'm enjoying very much making links between observations that we can make in the clinic and in the lab, as well as between different fields in science. I do believe that in science there is somewhat room for intuition and common sense. It doesn't mean that your intuition is truth, but your intuition can give you a good idea of what's a good hypothesis. And then you verify, obviously you build your background on strong ground, but to let your imagination going and the connections between different fields that are not connected initially is, I think, a lot of fun in research. I'm very motivated to understand and discover in order to improve clinical care, because I really think this is the essence of research and our duty as clinician scientists. As I say to the younger residents, we're not going to sit here on our chairs and wait for whoever else, CHOP or Toronto, I like you guys in Toronto, to tell us what to do. We need to do our part and improve care for everybody. I like very much to train clinicians and other health scientists to understand the importance of research, even if they don't do research themselves. I like to mentor students and younger colleagues, and I'm also very motivated to ensure that the learning and the working environment is stimulating, has high standards of quality, and is caring. And I could add, and is somewhat fun too. If I move away from my, my little experience, I would like to share with you some elements that I think are important when you prepare your career as a clinician scientist. I think the first gift you can give yourself is to give yourself an amazing training. Allow yourself to go abroad, to go far, and to go for a decent number of months or years. Training is rarely too long. I think it's very interesting also to explore fields during your training that are a little bit outside of your primary interest. There are complementary fields because they will give you ideas on how to make your field or your interest go faster. Explore the adult world. For example, those interested into neurodevelopment, neuroscience, the importance of environment on brain development. Obviously, the adult world of scientists studying Alzheimer's disease or vascular dementia, they're way ahead of us in understanding the interaction between the brain and the outside world or the environment. Why not go and study with them and see their approaches, their methods, their reasoning, and bring this back to the benefit of pediatric research. We always say it, determine your niche when you prepare to launch your own career. And don't forget to discuss it openly with your former supervisor, because first she can be of great, they can give you very good advices, but also it's very good to know who does what later on as you're starting to write your first papers as last author. One thing I would like to share also is that it's good to have an idea of what your niche is, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be fixed for the whole career. I think that your niche or your expertise can evolve with your research, your interest, and the opportunities that science and your career will offer you. Also, as you're doing your training, keep some data and some papers as preliminary data and ongoing productivity for the first year when you'll be starting your own lab and research team. Then how to launch your career. Now that you have a job and you're labeled clinician scientist, you need to get going. How do you do that? Organize and prioritize, it's kind of obvious. We hear a lot that it's very important to focus on your research. This is true, but as clinician scientists, the big motivation to do great science is the clinic. So I think we need to keep the clinic very present in our lives. It's okay to be involved in clinical committees. We just have to choose wisely what's relevant in those clinical committees for your research thematic or to keep you very motivated to get your research going. Also, build your clinical experience. You're a young faculty. You need to be also very comfortable when you're on call, when you're on duty. Don't hesitate to take the time to build your clinical experience. It doesn't mean that you don't have time for review research. It means that when you're in the clinic, it's okay to be totally involved in the clinic. Build your research team. I think it's very important to have a research team with a very solid research assistant. I will get back to that. Find mentors, people you can discuss them with. It can be peer mentors. Peer mentors are also, we say peer mentors when we're thinking about people of the same generations. I think it's very nice also to have more than one mentor. I think what is important is that your institution can help you finding a mentor, but it's also very important to identify who is helpful and who is not that much, because somebody can be very good in a specific field that is relevant for your area of research that could give you, in theory, very good advices. However, you need to have a connection, a human connection. You need to be happy to ask advice to your mentor. If that click is not there, it's okay to find another mentor. Self-care, if you can, don't forget indeed to take care of yourself and take some time off and do the good things for keep yourself healthy. As a woman, I allow myself to share with you that I absolutely planned my grants with my family planning. So a grant, a baby. Just, I think it's important not to put yourself, if you can, in complicated situations such as a due date 15 days before the grant is due to be submitted. That is making things way too complicated. So if you can avoid those situations. Maternity leaves, don't do what I did. I took maternity leaves that were way too short. 3 months is nonsense. Because what happens is that if you cut on your maternity leaves, officially, I mean, you're not more productive when you come. You know, your baby is still 6 months old, so she will wake up at night, get an ear infection, get a cold, whatever. So even if you're back at work, you're probably not very efficient and your neurons are not touching yet. They will come back to be touching each other, but right now they're not. So so I suggest that you take the full maternity leaves that your institution is allowing you to take. And if by any chance you can be back at doing good things for your lab, for your research team before that, good for you, but officially do not cut on your maternity leave. So now that you have your first grant, it's time to think about your first grant renewal. And that's really a hard part too. So how to maintain your clinician scientist career? Well, your team then is really becoming important. As a clinician scientist, you don't have as much time to be close to your research team because you can be stuck in the clinic. So I think a sure position would be to have a strong research assistant and strong students. And by what I mean by strong is that they're committed and loyal. They think that the research project is great and they will put the energy into it, even if they have to learn all the techniques from scratch. Postdoctoral students are also very often very helpful in that part of a career. Network, I mentioned already, very important to dare to reach out, knock at doors and say, hey, you know, I would like to work with you. I think what you're doing is really interesting. Can I help in any way? It will pay back many, sometimes months, years later. It doesn't matter. You're making new friends, you're broadening your scientific interest. Get involved into committees. As I've said recently, never say no to CIHR when they ask you to be on a committee. That's really such a learning possibility. Work with collaborators and co-PI. I think the path to success is really through teamwork. But here again, as for mentors, it has to be a right human fit beyond the scientific fit. Because if two people get together and get along, they will find a project to do together. But forced marriage don't work very well in science nor in real life. I think it's very important to continue to be involved in the clinic. It's for your credibility. If you want to talk about a problem, but you're so much remote from the clinic, you have less credibility, and also you get less ideas, because looking at your patients will give you idea on what are the key problems to study, what are the patient and family meaningful outcomes that we need to address. And because success in research is not a straight line, do not give up. Be stubborn, like a dog doesn't want to give back the stick, but won't bite. So be stubborn with a smile and continue to submit the grant, continue to submit the paper, it will get accepted. A word about a woman in career progression, challenges and solutions. I think specifically for women, challenges do remain. I think the challenge to be visible in science as a woman, the challenges are more and more subtle, but they're still there. I think I think that at the beginning of my career, and I've seen that for many women, they're not as often invited, thought of as a guest speaker, or when they state something about a scientific opinion or share facts, not taken as seriously. And I think we all share responsibility with this approach. I've witnessed and lived through criticisms of my ideas and scientific productivity that I have not seen a younger faculty male be given such a treatment. I think we have, as a group, to make sure that the conversations around science are always respectful, whoever is speaking. Regarding the balance between family, the lab, the clinic, and the administrative duties, I think each of these caseloads are in fact essential for the success of the other task. If we're not happy in the lab, we're going to be in a bad mood at dinner time. If we worry about the children, we won't be very performing in our administrative duties or in the clinic. So I think each of these elements need to be protected and nurtured. There's no way out. Regarding the woman's curve peak productivity is displayed to the right. That's for sure. The progression differs, and also the results at the end of 10, 20, 30 years of career, the results of what a woman have achieved versus men might differ as per current standards, and I think it's okay. In terms of how do we claim for justice or parents of justice, I think it's very important to speak up, to share ideas, to raise questions, but it's very important not to be whining. That's my opinion. I'm not sure we're gaining anything by complaining. It's because of this, it's because of that. I think we have to make the reality, the different realities respected, but complaining, it doesn't give us anything. I think it's very interesting to realize that women's approaches to science, to colleagues' relationship, to problem solving are different. And I really, I'm convinced that it is synergistic with the men's style, which is often more assertive, and overall progress are faster when both approaches are applied to a problem. Same with leadership. Leadership style differ, and I think there isn't one that is better than the other, but both are needed for a solution and progress to be made. How to improve women in science and in academia? I don't have, I should say, how to promote women in science and in academia as much as men. There's no simple answer, and I certainly don't pretend I have any the answer to all of this. We always discuss about grants evaluation criteria, promotion criteria, but it's really not simple to put those things into action, because ultimately grant evaluation, promotion is about scientific productivity. If you're less productive, you know, and the person next to you is more productive because she did not have such problem with the family or just simply having had a baby, what can we do against that? They're more productive. So we need to have a totally different approach to this whole career thing, the current standards that we have, and I don't have an answer to that. I certainly think that giving a chance and opportunities to women as much as to men certainly should help. I'll give you a small example. When I became chair of the department, I wanted to have associate chairs on many positions, and we're a group of 10. There's 10 associate chairs, and I wanted to have 5 women and 5 men. To get this group, I had to ask to 6 women and to 6 men. Of the 6 women to whom I asked, 5 told me, well, let me think about it. I'll tell you within a week. Only 1 told me right away, really? You want me to help you on that? Are you sure? Oh, well, okay. When I asked the man to get my 5-man position as associate chair, I had to ask 6. 5 men told me right away, yes. And 1 of the 6 told me, let me think about it for 3 days. And then after 3 days, he said, no, you know what? I have other things to do right now. I'm not going to do this. So clearly the rate of acceptance was the same, but the way they answered to my request was very different. So we have to give a chance. That's what I'm saying. Be open to different type of answers and apparently willingness to take a challenge. I think also as a group, we need to recognize, in French, we say la charge mentale, or the mental load. Is it's clear that women more often will think about many things at the same time, whether it's related to the children, the day camp, the grocery, the plumber, the lab, the clinic, the student who's having a broken heart. I think it's inherent to the way women are, and to sensitize male colleagues to take part of that burden early on in their careers, take part of that burden from their, or that load from their partner, could only help, or also allow women to discuss about it so that they feel a little less as their brain is going as a spinning wheel, you know, with everything they have to think about. We hear a lot also about men's club, but then I'm thinking, why wouldn't there be men's club as well as women's club? I don't think it's a matter of excluding the other ones. I think it's a matter of natural affinities. We always see that, I think, I don't want to be doing too much divisions, but there are some affinities in the conversations between men, but it's the same between women. And I don't think it's a problem. And I think it could be seen as something that help each other to be able to have good conversations and to go back everybody together to do more efficient work. I certainly think that we need to team up with guys from very early on in our career and in their careers and in their trainings. You saw I'm the mother of 3 white males. I want them to be part of the solution for making our society better. And I also want them to be able to have all the opportunities that they deserve, but without leaving anybody on the side of the road. I think that's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you, and I'll be happy to discuss if we have some time.
So yeah, thank you. And Monique, I will be the one who's going to be in charge of the questions. So perhaps you can stop sharing your screen.
There we go.
So we can see the gallery of people. So yeah, for questions, you know the drill. Either you raise your hands or use the chat box to type your questions in. So.
In the meantime, and Monique, oh, I see already questions. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so we'll take the question of Shannon. So please, can you unmute yourself, Shannon? Yeah. You didn't seem to be muted, right?
No.
Okay, so I'll go with the chat box while we wait for Shannon. Said that thanks for this really interesting talk. I'm encouraged to hear the advice to keep connected to the clinical work and not abandon it to pursue research. Do you have any tips on how to craft a clinical role that allows you to stay involved without interfering with research productivity too much, recognizing this is likely to look different for different disciplines?
Yeah, obviously. I think that simple examples are, I don't know, for me as a neonatologist, you know, there's no point for me. And so I study cardiovascular diseases. So maybe I should get involved in the committee that will choose the new heart and blood pressure monitors, because then I'll understand what are the principles to have high quality machines and things like that, but not the phototherapy lights. I shouldn't get involved into this. I think if you're interested to train good students, you can get involved in the fellow committee, but maybe it's not a good idea to take the leadership of the fellowship program, because that's a lot of things to do. You can participate in organizing scientific conferences of your department or your division, because then you can guide the topics that will allow you to remain up to date in your clinical field, as well as bring interesting topics that will broaden your colleagues' interest for a research topic that is fun for you. There could be many examples like this. Yeah, it's an important question, and it's something to which it's worth stopping to think before you accept to be part of the committee. Because very efficient persons are being asked to go on many, many committees. So we have to be careful with that. If you want something done, give it to somebody busy, but there's still 24 hours in a day.
All right, thank you. Susan, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Anne Monique.
Hi, Susan.
I was just reflecting on the family planning questions that you had to obviously go through, and it's wonderful to see that you had 3 children, and so did I, and all of them through early career. And I just wanted to reflect back to the group also that students said in the early career, that's really most pressing on their heart. How do I have children? And for both men and women, how do we dedicate time to family? When is the right time to start a family? And so usually I say, your family is first and everything can be set aside. So I just wanted to encourage the audience to put your family first, and that's what's going to make your career more meaningful. And I'm sure if you're working with a mentor who understands and has, has empathy and compassion, they will make accommodations for you during your early career period for you to maintain your success and to keep productivity when you come back. So I just sense that there's a lot of anxiety in the early career zone. So I just wanted to echo that and encourage that your family goes before all grants and productivity questions within the scientific world.
I agree, Suzanne. I think it's undeniable, but the only advice I allow myself to give is to plan a little bit. For example, you're not going to plan your first, I don't know, Walt Disney trip 15 days before the CIHR grant deadline. You plan it after, little things like that, there's no magic. I mean, the papers still need to be written and the grants to be submitted, but it's possible to do it. And you still go to Walt Disney.
All right, so I'll go to the chat box with Shannon. She said that she's sorry about she has having mic problems today. So her question is, yesterday, one of the speakers said success is more related to confidence than competence. I found that very discouraging and wondered what your view is on this.
Well, I would say that it's hard to imagine that in science. I'm sure it's a thought-provoking type essay, but in science, it's hard to imagine that you can have success without the minimum of competence and solid data and well-organized hypotheses and experiences and experiments. But it's true that confidence allows you not to give up when your paper is rejected, your grant is rejected, and you go back and you improve it, and you don't say it's only the fault of the stupid reviewers. Probably you didn't explain it very well. Maybe they were too tired when they revised your grant or your paper, but maybe also you could improve still that grant or that paper. So in that sense, it takes confidence to think that, yes, my idea is worth it. I'm going to go back and back and back and improve my stuff. So probably both are required.
Hélène?
Yeah, thank you, Anne Monique, for your talk. I was reflecting on the fact that you mentioned that the productivity of women might be different than the productivity of men, especially in the first years where you have your family. And then you had that sentence saying that, but unfortunately, like career advancement and academic advancement and promotion are based on like tangible productivity. and you said something like, and that's difficult to change because, that's how you attest productivity. Couldn't we think in universities and, as chairs of departments that we should change those criterias to include other markers of productivity in women and other defining roles? You don't necessarily need to be dean of the Faculty of Medicine, but you could be a leader of CCHCSP and has significant impact. So is there a way that we could reformulate those criteria so that tangible productivity is not as much of a you understand what I mean, as much of a poids, or a big load, a big chunk of that score or mark or decision to be advanced?
Well, to take a leadership role in CCHCSP is very well looked at, don't worry. I think we need to think outside of the box here, and do we need different competition? One thing for sure is that all these criterias that include age or number of years since somebody has started, that would probably be the easy things to change. Because like the age criteria is terrible. We see that less and less, but there are some, the best 40, under 40. Those type of things are things that are probably the first easy things to change. I don't have an answer. I think that if we could share more efficiently the work, build teams a little sooner in our careers, value collaborative work, more than just being independent investigator, that would probably be things that help quite efficiently. Because if you're a team, when somebody is not as available to work hard for a few months, then the other one picks up. And ultimately, you probably end up with nice productivity ideas and papers. Honestly, I don't have a magical answer, but it certainly, we deserve to continue thinking about it because the problem is not solved.
Okay, so we have about 2 minutes left. So Sherry, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, I'm Monique. Thanks for a wonderful talk. And I concur with everything that you said. One of the major things that I think we can do is to really push the age limit for a lot of first awards. I think that's really, really, really important to continue doing. We've already managed to discount a pregnancy leave in the counter when you're applying for grants and for awards in Quebec. It's not necessarily universal, but it's still better than it was. But one of the things that I think we really need to change, and I have seen it again and again as I've sat on scientific planning committees for large international meetings, often the women will not accept to come and speak in a symposium or give a plenary lecture because maybe they do have true conflicts. But I think we really have to make sure that they don't shy away, and they can't afford to say, well, let me think about it. Sometimes invitations you just have to accept. So that would be what I would add. And my last question to you is really, what do you see the biggest challenge for clinician scientists as we move now into 2022 post-COVID? The biggest challenge.
You're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Well, that's a very vast question. Sherry, you're always fantastic to ask very broad questions. I think that these conferences should help women to accept right away to give conferences. And well, whoever doesn't like to travel or doesn't want to go away from the children or from whatever. And that should be a very nice way of continue to network, even though we will need to go back to see people for real, because very good ideas are shared around also a table at the bar late at night, and these connections we miss a lot. The biggest challenge is hoping that the CIHR will still have some money for us. That's for sure.
So I made a mistake actually, and Monique, we still have 9 minutes ahead of us. So we will keep you with us. So Maria, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thanks all for a great discussion. I should introduce myself. My name is Maria Castro, and I'm a pediatric respirologist and sleep specialist at the University of Alberta in Edmonton. And I also have a background from a different country, and I live in this world of trying to combine my family needs and my academic needs and how to support everybody. And I do feel many of the pressures that we've been discussing. My question is, do you have any tips on how we can really also change our own work culture within our teams to promote this equality? Because sometimes I feel that that we get carried on, like we make the assumption that women have to take certain roles and the guys get away without certain roles, and the whole work environment contributes to that. For instance, if we know that putting meetings late afternoon makes the gender quote difficult, can we change that? Can we not put meetings at 4 p.m. when certain part of the population needs to go pick up their kids? Can we promote paternal leaves? Can we do more in our own teams now that we are creating that, now that we are trying to set up a research team and we're trying to, you know, create something that works for everybody?
Yeah, these are very good examples, Maria. I totally agree with you. Until my last one was entered school, I didn't go to any meeting that was before 8:39 in the morning. That was it. I just wasn't going because they were not, I was already picking them up so late from daycare that I didn't want them to be the first to arrive there. I totally agree. And I think by recognizing in a team these challenges that probably men will be happy to share as well, to pick up kids from the daycare from very early on in a team and in a work environment, I think are very important. I really think that we can't get out of this without teaming up with the guys and the fathers. As I said, people very often, they just don't even think about that mental load that there is, like the spinning wheel we have in the head, thinking of everything at the same time. And if we simply share it, that will be the beginning of a conversation about more equal share of the work. One element that you brought that I wanted to say in my presentation, but I forgot to mention, is that I've realized over the recent years is that women are asked to be involved in committees and certain tasks for their institution. But you will notice that very often these tasks can be quite demanding. You know, internal review committees, writing the new rules for something, things that require a lot of thinking, writing, time, and not just setting up a direction and, okay, teams, you go there, and me, I'm off to do something else. I think we have to be careful, even ourselves as women, to when we have a responsibility to get a task done, to make sure that we don't always think about the same in doing that task. I don't know if I'm being clear. I see Geneviève doing this, so maybe what I'm saying is understandable, but There are some work that are for institutions that are more demanding than others, like organize the student yearly research day. You know, more often a woman will organize that instead of a guy. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's true, but we have to be careful with that as well. And me, now in a more leadership position, I have also to be careful not to ask the woman who will do a great job, but it will be quite demanding on their time to do those tasks. I don't know if this resonates. Hey, my friend Jean-Sébastien.
You have to repeat. Sorry, I had my écouteur. Did I interfere?
No.
I totally agree, Monique, with what you just said. It resonates because I think women have a tendency to take some tasks that will be very time consuming, and we have to be careful to decide which ones of those tasks are really important for our careers. And if we decide to take them along, maybe ask for help. Probably some of our male leaders will demand right away, you know, do you have to have an assistant to help me, to have a secretary who I can count on to do this? And often women will just take on their shoulders and do the work. So I think we have to not hesitate to also organize our teams in consequences so that we can fulfill those opportunities. I see Suzanne have her hands up. Do you still have a question, Suzanne? Maybe you want to make a small comment?
Yeah, I wanted to just add that from my observation, I mean, there are of course differences in the way people take up responsibility depending on who they are and what their situation is. But for me, what I usually look at is what's my primary goal? Is it to be a scientist? And depending on whatever stage of my career I'm in. So let's say I was when I was in early career, my primary goal was to get those grants, to get dollars into the bank account, because everything was followed after that. Or let's say you're a PhD student, your primary goal is to write that thesis. So what I usually say to myself, what do I need to do to preserve my time and space and my mental concentration to make my primary goal happen? And if anything I'm asked, and it doesn't matter who asks me or what type of role it might be, if I feel that that's going to distract me from my primary goal, I will say no. And you have to be very firm with that. No one can make that decision for you. Sometimes it could be a very minor task, like I was asked to sit on a very small catalyst grant early on in my kidney career, and to chair a committee. And someone would have said, oh, that's a committee, don't do that. But I saw that as advancing my career in some way. So everything you do has to be aligned with your primary goal. And I think that will help you say yes or no and prune the asks. And yes, I'm a mother of 3. I don't have infinite time. And if I didn't have those skills in prioritization, and I wasn't able to, put boundaries around my work, I would not be a good mother, nor a good partner to my husband. So I had to make those choices early on. And some of these decisions get very, very personal. And sometimes it's very hard for us to be prescriptive. And you have to be a visionary to see what that small committee or that small task or a big task like somebody did to me, which was in the hallway of ACH, Alberta Children's Hospital. Susan Bensler tapped me on the shoulder. So are you going to apply for the CCHCSP leadership role? And I took 6 weeks to think about it and put in my application on the very last day. So, you never know. So you have to have the vision to see where you're going and whether that particular task is aligning with that vision or not. Otherwise, you'll be floundering.
Totally agree, Suzanne. Yeah.
With this beautiful conclusion, thank you, Suzanne and Monique. Thank you so much for bringing all of these questions together today for us and giving a lot of food for thought for all of us going forward. So I'll again thank Anne Monique for being with us today.